Because
we know that there's an explosion on board,
yep.
so the intactness of it is one of the major research questions. Is how big was the explosion, and you know, what sort of what the damage was. So that's one of the major questions.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are that we find the plane? Well,
50-50. We either do or we don't. It's really there's really no way of calculating. I mean, I'm sure there is, but there's really, for our purposes, no way of calculating. We're just gonna keep looking.
Yeah, we did a lot of background research to get all the eyewitness accounts and reports of the ships that came out to look for it, and found debris in various wreckage in various areas. So we've done quite a bit of survey in the area that those reports pointed to. So now it's a matter of expanding that in the directions that make the most sense based on those reports, and and see how much area we're able to cover.
Yeah. Someone's asking Chris, what year are you at the academy?
I'm going into my last year.
Yay!
So yeah, so I will be a senior, graduating class of 2020.
Cool. What are your plans later on? Do you have any plans?
Yes. Well, so at the academy, you owe 5 years of service afterwards, but I plan on staying in for a full career. So at least 20 years, hopefully, if they'll have me.
Whoa.
So yeah, there's a very diverse set of choices that you can have in the Coast Guard. It does so many things that really am keeping my options open, but I know I definitely want to work underway on a ship. If anyone's seen that recent video that came out of the Coast Guard boarding team jumping onto the drug sub.
Oh, I heard about it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a cool video.
I'd like to do that.
That specific job.
That specific job. I'm sure a lot of those guys were enlisted while the academy is the officer route, but there definitely is the track to go boarding officer. We have our tacklet and let it teams, specialized law enforcement, MSRT, MSST, that kind of specialize in that more focused area.
Do you guys know how do you distinguish the wreck of this plane from MH370 in case we run into that one?
Is that supposedly another
this is
plane in the area?
I think so.
MH371, you know.
Isn't that the Malaysian flight?
That's the big Malaysian one, the big.
Oh, that's what. How do we? They're very different sized
They're
planes.
they're also that didn't crash anywhere around here.
Very different areas. That was a large
passenger plane.
Passenger plane, modern.
And that sank east of Australia, so that's not where we are.
Yeah, they didn't find it, but they know basically where it went down, general area, and that is still very far away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'd say pretty easily.
What's that big black band in this?
In the sonar?
Yeah.
So that's the water column. So Argus is flying about 20 meters above the seabed right now. And so the black space is the area before the sound pulses hit the seabed and start reflecting. So it's the distance above, the altitude above the seabed that Argus is flying.
Yeah,
it's called the nadir, or the area below it.
Even that's a bit of a stretch. All he did was change the range in the sonar.
I'm going to give a quick summary in
fair game.
Spanish then. Sí, seguimos en la búsqueda del Pan American Samoan Clipper, que
Getting called out
desapareció el 11
by
de
moms
enero de
for eating beans.
1938 después de un
Wow.
accidente donde se suscitó un fuego y cayeron al agua en el norte de Pango Pango en American Samoa, donde estamos en este momento escaneando el área. En nuestro canal 1 pueden ver los resultados del retorno del escáner del sonar. Tenemos un sonar de alta frecuencia y de baja frecuencia. El de alta frecuencia se muestra en la parte superior y en la parte inferior el de baja frecuencia. En la cámara 2, nuestro canal 2, se pueden ver las imágenes de la cámara que se encuentra debajo de nuestro vehículo que se remotamente manejado. Y en nuestro canal Quad pueden ver ustedes esas dos imágenes, pero además el mapa con la batimetría del área, y en rosado, en rosa fuerte, van a encontrar el barco, el Nautilus, con su vehículo Argus, que es el que está escaneando el lugar con el sonar. Do we know if there are other known wrecks in this area?
We were looking into that, and there were some plane crashes in the area of the Samoan Islands in the 1940s during World War II, but we don't believe any of them were in this specific area.
We would also like to find those too.
Yeah,
on
if we
our
came
journey.
across one of those, we would be very happy to dive on and document those as well.
Yeah, we
We're
will take
not-
both.
Yeah, we may not be looking, or we may be looking for one specific aircraft, but we are open to any sort of aircraft wreckage or shipwreck or cultural resource that we may find out here.
Was it? I can't remember if it was Okeanos or not, but whether it was this year or last year, I remember seeing on someone's Instagram that they were on their shakedown dive.
That was Okeanos this
Yeah,
year.
they were on their shakedown dive, just trying some engineering things,
Yeah.
and stumbled upon an old wooden ship.
It was a formerly wooden ship that was mostly deteriorated. It had copper sheathing on it, and it was full of gravel, which is, we don't know if that was ballast or something else, but it also looked like it had been burned. I got an email about it as I was driving home, so I pulled into my driveway. I opened up my email, and they're like, "We're on a shipwreck. We need help." They sent it out to the archaeology group who were all on call for Okeanos stuff, and so I immediately went in my door, calmed my dog down, and opened up my laptop, pulled up Ocean Explorer, NOAA.Ocean Explorer, which is their version of Nautilus Live, and I called, rather than have they do have a science chat, but they also have a conference call number, so I called in, and I called in as like a few other archaeologists called in as well, and we just started going around it and discussing it and documenting it. But yeah, like they were totally unprepared because it was totally random because they were just on a shakedown dive to it. They picked a random spot off of Florida in the Gulf of Mexico on the escarpment there to get to the right depth for their engineering dive, and that was all the thought that had gone into it. So sometimes you can spend days and days and days looking for something, and sometimes you can find it completely by accident.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think that's this is so cool.
Yeah.
You're just down there and you're like, oh, watch out, there's a rock
Well,
coming.
they weren't even
Wait a
streaming
minute.
it to the website yet. We had to actually click on a link to get a specific feed because it was a shakedown cruise. It wasn't even on the website. And they had like no one was aware that they were diving, or like no one was really ready to be on call because there was no science planned for it. So they actually agreed to extend the dive because they typically only dive certain hours of the day on Okeanos because they only have bunks for certain, they can't do 24-hour watches. But they agreed to extend it just because they had to do their engineering, and then we wanted to get some time on the wreck, so that was nice of them to do. And we did some photogrammetry surveys with the video camera on it.
Cool.
Do you guys think there is a potential use of underwater drones in the future?
Oh, totally.
Well, I mean, we already do. I mean,
Yeah.
underwater AUVs basically are underwater drones. They're you can't fly them in real time because the signal, it's hard to get a signal
Down there, right?
command down to them through the water. But they run pre-programmed tracks to do surveys, and then they're programmed to come back to the ship. They're also programmed to like avoid. Like if they're running towards an obstacle, they're programmed with sonar to avoid them and do all sorts of things. They're usually typically made to be positively buoyant, so if they lose power, they'll come to the surface. So we basically have underwater drones already.
Great. Isn't that awesome? So great. Technology and science.
So the ship's coming across the line right now, and we got about 730 meters behind us.
Yep, roger that.
Yeah, even if 81 years seem to be a long time, we do hope and we expect to find the wreck mostly without any marine life living on it because of the depth and the conditions. So, yeah, great thinking.
Yeah, if you guys look around at the other life down here, or lack thereof, it would provide a little bit of structure for stuff to grow on. So I'm sure there'll be something. But it's not going to be like some lush, like shallow water reef or anything like that.
Looks like a nice fish in the water column.
Is that a fish?
Oh.
Yeah, no.
I thought it was like a
I could
shrimp or
fit it in a
something.
bread box.
It's not
Normally
moving.
that would not be a hard thing to find on a regular dive.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
It's not a rock, not
Yeah,
a
no,
sea
if we-
cucumber, and bigger than a bread box.
Yeah,
but on
you'd
this
like
dive,
your first
it's
cuss gill that you find, you know?
Yeah.
Usually there's pretty big ones. And the one we found was like half the size of some of those.
So for the people that just started following us, we decided to do a bingo, and part of the bingo was to find something that is not a rock and not a sea cucumber.
And bigger than a bread box.
Yeah, exactly.
It has been almost 4 hours, and we have not succeeded.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll continue this card next watch
4
tonight
p.m.
and then make a new one. So in a little over 8 hours.
Stay tuned for more exciting bingo. Bingo action.
Any trash on the seabed? Not for this expedition.
We've seen a few little things.
Yeah?
Nothing really
Yeah,
this morning.
nothing lately. Not in the past day, at least. I think we saw maybe one or two small pieces.
We're also still a bit of the ways off the seafloor, so if there was something small, I don't think we would catch it. But
No,
in terms of
not.
larger trash, only a few sightings.
So I would say that mostly the heavy objects wouldn't move. They would stay stationary for...
Oh yeah, from the plane?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there would, currents definitely, even over time, are not strong enough to move the solid heavy objects. If you think about how fast a plane has to go just to take off and get any lift, then think about how fast the currents would have to go to give it any kind of propulsion to move. Obviously slightly different, but...
Bobby Argus.
So what do we do on our free time on the ship?
Sleep.
Sleep. Eat.
Eat, sleep, work.
Read. Watch TV.
I read too. I do
I
read.
brought a guitar this year.
I did some yoga yesterday.
Yoga, yeah.
I breathe sometimes.
Gym.
And chat, you know, like there's
yeah, a lot of sitting and talking.
Yeah, a number of good, very interesting personal stories here. We come from very different backgrounds, and it's really nice to chat.
We're streaming the feed on TVs around the ship. So
that is actually
sometimes you just sit there and watch the feed. Yeah, it's different because you're not on watch, so it's not like...
That's right. You're not responsible for it.
Yeah, you can just watch it like everyone at home. You know, you're just along for the ride.
Yeah. There is coffee on board.
There is a lot of coffee on board.
There is coffee, yeah.
Well,
and tea
coffee.
And... it is okay, yeah.
I think so.
Happy Friday. Is it Friday already here? No.
No, it's Friday in the other, over the date line.
Oh, yeah.
So happy Friday to you
So
guys.
happy Friday to you guys. Party? Well, we don't party that much. We have...
Party?
Yeah, they're asking about party.
Actually, for ships, we party after every cruise. After every cruise, we have a little barbecue.
Yeah, we'll have one at the end, I'm sure.
But it's a dry ship, so we,
What is the bread box? And what size is it? Is it an American thing?
I think so. I don't think it's a thing anymore.
I think it's an old-fashioned thing.
Yeah. It's like the size of a microwave.
Oh, that big?
Well, I don't know anybody who has one.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are we talking about?
What a bread box is and how big it is.
Oh, yeah, just imagine like maybe twice the size of a loaf of bread, but you only put one loaf of bread in it.
I'd say, yeah, whoever said the size of the microwave, I think that's an...
Yeah, our bread box was the size of a microwave.
Toaster
it's like
oven.
A microwave with nothing in it. Doesn't work. Toaster oven is, yeah. Toaster oven.
Did you guys go to see the Apollo moon rocks in the museum on Pango Pango? Well, no, not me.
No.
I did not know that they were there.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Where are they?
In the museum.
And where? In Pongo?
I know
We didn't have a lot of time.
Steve and I passed the
Go wander.
museum. Yeah, everyone who came on board, really it was like they came on board and the ship set sail kind of a deal.
Yeah. Pretty quick port call.
But yeah, no, I didn't know that. That would have been cool to go see.
The island looks really nice right now in the morning light with the clouds. So take a look at it when you step out.
Is today the Apollo anniversary?
I think it's the
No,
20th.
20th?
Wait, didn't they already have it?
I think it's the 20th.
I swear I saw something
relief
on
is here.
Instagram that was like 2 days ago was
Okay,
the anniversary.
Maybe
I think they've been doing stuff this summer, like for a couple of days, but
No.
So we're about to switch our watches. So you're gonna be hearing some chatting here. People are catching up. I'm reading your comment about the bread box. So bread box is still a thing, apparently. We have some people commenting on that. Good morning. All right. I'm off for breakfast, but I'm gonna leave you guys with Madison and the new crew for this new shift from 8 to 12. And thanks for following us. See you guys in 8 hours. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
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 Hi.
Hey. Did anyone else dream about side scan sonar last night? Or just me?
Totally did not.
Negative.
We had a viewer write in who dreamed that we found the plane in perfect detail on the side scan with piano music in the background.
Whoa.
Hmm.
Well, hopefully we can make that happen today. Maybe sans piano music. Or we could add it. I don't know. What is the latest?
We are doing those north-south lines to the west of the original grid. And that's about it.
Cool.
So I have some scribble from Mike as far as what the plan is.
Scribble, let's hear it.
Okay, finish this one. Head to 26, headed north. 27, headed south. We're going to then move over and do one of the southern lines, one of the new lines, heading east. We're going to go up and redo 11, heading to the west. You don't have to remember this because this is like 20 hours from now.
Okay.
Then we're going to actually drop down with Argus's camera to look at targets 30 and 31, and then continue the western lines that we have not completed.
Cool. So Argus cam will be on 30 and 31
Yeah, time frame,
This time tomorrow.
don't know. Yeah,
TBD.
yeah.
TBD, but not necessarily anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, no.
I overheard we're going to be coming up by midnight tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard too.
That's right. I might be off bottom midnight tomorrow. I'm not sure.
So we're going to break the record of continuous dive by a landslide.
Oh yeah, I already have broken it, and then we're going to keep breaking it. Every minute is a new record. Speaking
So
of records,
Speaking of records.
What was the longest dive?
it was 74 hours, I believe.
Is that Argus alone? Or
That was Argus and Herc. That's still the longest Herc dive,
cool. And which is longer than the longest Argus dive?
which was longer than the longest Argus dive. And now the longest Argus dive is longer.
What's that?
Now the longest Argus only dive is longer.
Yeah, cool.
How many hours have we been at it now?
Over 80.
Whoa. That is 2 whole work weeks.
Good point.
Yeah, 82. 82 right now, I think. Does that math check out?
Sounds right.
81 and a half.
Well, good morning, everyone who is joining us. I'm looking at the map, and we have, again, folks from all over the world. American Samoa, just a few miles away from us right now. Also, we're looking at Denmark, Ecuador, Spain, Norway, Turkey, Finland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Canada, Germany, UK, and the US. So, welcome aboard. We are currently continuing our side scan sonar survey of the bottom of the ocean floor. I think somebody wrote on the whiteboard, keep calm and survey on this morning. And so that is exactly what we're doing. We're currently operating on the north to south lines, and those are located in the west of the original grid area. So if you're just tuning in, you maybe weren't here for the last few hours or a few watches, we've added a few lines, I believe 16 altogether, 16 new lines located to the west of the original survey area, just based on some analysis from our research team who determined that it would be in the best interest to continue side scan sonar mapping while we're down there and covering a greater area, just so that we can be a little bit more thorough in our search for the Samoan Clipper. Trevor, this is a question for you, I think, about last night when we were testing sort of the zoom of Argus and seeing how that affected the sonar.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Way to
I
stay
think
on
this
top
came
of
from
it.
my husband. Sorry.
Oh.
Possibly.
Uh-oh. All right.
I guess we'll find out one way or another. So I'm just going to read it. When you were testing the camera and zoom, could you perhaps explain why the disturbance seems to start halfway out and then appears to get stronger as it continues going outwards?
Halfway out. Halfway out. Of the,
Does that mean like towards wide from tight?
I don't know that it does. I think it's the whole range of zoom.
So what's happening?
It just when the electric motor's moving the zoom or moving the lens, you can try it out. Yeah.
Which are we looking at side scan or at the
At
front
both.
facing?
They both affected.
I'll take your word for it. I don't want to mess up the
Roger.
radars.
Sonars. Yeah, the whole range of zoom affects the side scan and the forward facing, or I guess 360 sonar.
Is that something we've noticed in the past or just recently?
I don't know that it wasn't there in the past, but I don't think we've noticed it in the past.
Yeah, because we don't do too much zooming with Argus.
Not often, and when we are, we're not really focused on the sonar screen.
Right.
Whereas this is taking up an entire monitor. But yeah, the full range of zoom is equally affecting the sonar.
Maybe I'll test it out if we get to a sediment field.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You see like these sort of bars across when it is there.
Okay.
And that's just because of the sound that the zoom makes, right? As it's...
Exactly, yeah. Electric motors are notoriously noisy, and that's an electric motor used to rotate the lens.
I think I just made one there with the focus.
Yeah, that one right there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what it looks
focus.
like.
Focus will do it too, yeah. That's another electric motor.
Do you know what the zoom sounds like?
It's a frequency above our ears.
So for those of you that, that are maybe looking on the screen at home, it's that bottom right quadrant there. You can sort of see that yellow horizontal line. Yep, where the cursor is. And that's the one.
Huh. Do we know if that happens with Hercules?
I believe it does not, but it's also insulated by a big old foam pack. Whereas this Zeus zoom is kind of near to the sonars. It's not that near the side scan sonar, but it is uninterrupted between there.
Right.
So, yeah.
And on Hercules, it's on the top, isn't it?
Yeah, the Mesotech's on the top. The C-Prince is operating at a different frequency. That's the forward-facing sonar on Herc, and I don't think it's affected, but I don't know that I've ever verified that.
And is that, maybe the question is, you know, why does that line sort of start all the way away from that center area, from where Argus is? You know, if Argus is that black line down the middle, why aren't we seeing that line from the black line out?
I bet we're seeing it the whole way, but because the side, I don't know this, but because the side scan data is more gained towards the outside to give it an even representation, I bet it's just being more magnified out there. It's probably a small disturbance, and then I don't know, it's being more magnified, more gained on the outside bits. I don't know that though. That's speculation.
Dee Dee, do you know?
No, I mean, I'm sure you could fool around with the gains while also zooming to see where it started and stopped.
But that doesn't necessarily interfere with what we're looking for.
No, it wouldn't mask anything.
So we just came in, most of us just came in from breakfast. This is the 8 to 12 shift. Snacks are a little bit farther from my mind, but I do think maybe our control van preferred snack is chocolate-covered coffee beans to keep the kick going. Does anyone else have any favorite snacks on board? Candied ginger maybe for the tummy?
Favorite control van snack or favorite snack in general?
Maybe just like on the boat. But does your snack choice vary depending on if you're on the boat or not?
I wouldn't say on the boat to not, but I would say in the control van to not, because my favorite snacks are the crumbliest ones that Max makes. He is an incredible baker, and the 2:30, 3 o'clock snacks are always incredible. But I don't know if I'd bring cheesecake up to the van, you know?
Oh, those chocolate chip cookies were out. And I don't even like chocolate chip cookies. Yeah. They were out of control.
Hmm? As in you dislike chocolate chip cookies, or they're not your favorite cookies?
Okay, I don't actually really like chocolate that much. I know. What? I know, it's weird. But as I've gotten older, I can kind of eat more chocolate. But when I was a kid, I hated chocolate. It was so weird.
Madness.
I know. So as Dee Dee mentioned not too long ago, we are continuing our side scan sonar survey of the ocean floor here, and we're in the western area. That's the additional area from the original survey region, so we've decided to expand it since Argus is already down there and we're already mapping away, and we just want to be certain that we don't miss anything. So we've talked a little bit about this, but you know, as the team sort of gets in and starts mapping and familiarizes themselves with what the bottom of the ocean looks like here, they're able to sort of begin ruling out things that might have looked more interesting in the beginning that aren't necessarily indicative of an aircraft at this time. But Dee Dee, you did say there were 30 and 31 are of maybe particular interest.
Yeah, those two potential targets still hold some interest for us, and you know, as we proceed, we're going to continue a few more lines here to the west. We may cover a bit to the south as well, and then before we depart, there is a you know, the intention to at least go run over those targets, fill in. We detected one small gap in our coverage, so we're going to go and run over that one section of line in the primary search area, and then direct the ship to run directly over those two targets, 30 and 31, and we'll get the camera on them and verify, you know, what's there. Is it a natural feature, or is there something, you know, more interesting to see there? So we'll have the confidence that that we got total coverage, and that we had, you know, some indication, some verification on what those targets were that caught our attention. So we won't leave everyone dangling with that mystery of, you know, well, what if, what happened? Like, you know, why didn't you check out those unusual anomalies? So.
But probably not this shift, right?
No, no, that's
going
to be probably tomorrow. So, yeah, we're going to continue on the western edge for a while longer, and then the next thing would be next priority would be to move to the south, because we also feel that there was a northern component to the drift of oil and debris that was followed by the Avocet, the search ship, the day after the accident, and also you know, so that to track it back to its origin would mean moving further to the south. And then we also like that because the further south we go, the closer we get to the island, and the closer we get to the vantage point of the eyewitness. And so in order for her to have seen the level of detail that was reported, it helps that if the accident occurred closer to her point of view.
And because we have some viewers tuning in from American Samoa, I think this is a great time to sort of make our PSA.
Yes, our call for assistance. So talofa to our viewers in American Samoa and Samoa, and yes. So in the historical record, the investigators repeatedly refer to the eyewitness, and unfortunately they didn't ever record her name, but we know a little bit about her. We know that she reported that she was in a boat. She had left Fangasa Bay on her way to Asu, and for those who don't live on American Samoa, Fangasa Bay is on the north side of the island of Tutuila, just opposite Pongo Pongo, which faces south. And so she was in that bay and heading to Asu, which is west down the northern coast of Tutuila. And she had cleared the harbor entrance, the entrance to the bay, and when she saw the plane approach, flying low overhead in the direction of Apia, which is to the west, and then and it was trailing what she described as smoke. And then said that she smelled gasoline after it had passed over, and investigators concluded that really what she was seeing was not actually smoke, but it had the appearance of it, in that it was the trails of fuel as it was being dumped and kind of atomized in the wake of the airplane. And we know from the radio transmissions that was their plan. Was the last thing they said they were going to do was dump fuel in order to lighten the airplane. So that makes perfect sense. She said the plane passed overhead and then made a turn out to sea, headed northward, and then after a short while, it appeared to dive for the surface of the ocean, and then began what she took to be a landing maneuver. But then there was a flash and the sound of like a gunshot, and a lot of black smoke, and she could see the wings at the surface for about 5 minutes or so before they disappeared from sight. So again, her testimony was judged to be extremely reliable because she had told that story to the head of her village before word had reached them that the airplane was overdue and missing. So for her to have known, that level of detail and about what had happened to the airplane, before anyone had officially received any news, is a good indicator that she was absolutely telling the truth. So, but they never recorded her name. We don't know her name, and so every time we know that there's people logged in and listening in and watching what we're doing from American Samoa, we want to get this story out there, and please ask around. It seems like this is the kind of story that would be passed down, that people would remember and would tell again and again about having witnessed this terrible tragedy, and we just think if you could just ask, was it your grandmother or your mother or your aunt, and or maybe a friend, so suspect that she probably was from Fangasa. It seems like she was on her way perhaps to visit somebody, or other accounts say that she was fishing, but it seems like Fangasa was her kind of home base. So if you're from that area especially, just please ask around, and if you hear anything, write in to us here and let us know.
Yeah, and it may seem like it's a bit of a stretch, but we've already had a couple of serendipitous moments here on board, one of which we realized that data logger Rebecca Whipfler is actually related to Captain Ed Music, and granted it's, by way of maybe a few different generations, but I believe her father wrote in, right? And after they'd done a little bit of extra research, realized that they were indeed related.
Yeah, I think it was when she just wrote home and told them about the mission that she was on, and happened to mention the name of Captain Music, and I think her father recognized right away that he had Musics in his family tree. It was apparently from his side of the family, and they did some quick genealogy research, and I tracked it back 5 generations or so. I mean, I think it's something like it was Music's great grandfather and Rebecca's great grandfather. So
yeah,
but there is a connection, and it was not known until she was already assigned to this trip. Her interest is in extremophiles and hydrothermal vents. And I'm sure she would have loved to have been on the earlier cruise when they discovered the Apollo fields, but I mean, she's terrifically excited to be here now, and it was a really cool coincidence to find out that she has this family connection, and we're still doing working our hardest to arrange a family reunion. So
absolutely. And we had another listener post a story online about he works with a woman who remembers the Samoan Clipper coming into where she was from, right?
Yes, he wrote in from New Zealand. He's been caring for the elderly, helping people with visual impairments, and wrote to us about this remarkable woman that he's been working with. It sounds like she's had a lot of incredible adventures in her life, but in particular, she recalled a time as a young girl and as a teenager, and in the outskirts of Auckland in New Zealand. And I won't even try to attempt to pronounce the name of the place, but it was somewhere not directly in Auckland, but you know, a good distance away, and they were on holiday, like camping, you know, near the beach, and heard this terrific noise, and came outside and found this huge flying boat had landed just offshore, and taxied in and anchored up, and she and her brother, you know, rowed out and welcomed the flyers, who turned out to be from America, and it was the Pan Am Clipper, you know, had just arrived, and you know, on one of its first flights to New Zealand, and it's interesting, like, this isn't recorded in you know, most of the general histories out there. I mean, you know, I wasn't familiar with this story that Music and Samoan Clipper had landed short of Auckland and waited for bad weather to pass before they continued on and arrived at the city. But it absolutely has to be 100% true, because not only did she tell her story, but she has photos. She has 2 photos that show, one of them shows they're coming up on the back of the plane, and you can read the registration number, NC16734, which is Samoan Clipper. And then they came around to the front of the plane, and there's a shot there where you can read the name right there on the bow, on the nose of the plane. It says Samoan Clipper. And then what's really neat is the pilot's hatch is open, and there's a man standing in the hatch looking out at them, and it really looks like it's Ed Music. And I wrote back to them about that it's like that really, you know, it looks like it could be Captain Music, and they replied and said she thinks that yes, that it was the captain, because the rest of the crew came ashore to stay with them, but that the captain insisted that he was going to stay with the plane. And that is so in line with everything that we've come to know about Ed Music's character, that he was, you know, so meticulous and so dutiful that he would not have left his airplane, you know, unattended in a strange, you know, harbor, you know, just on its anchor line. So it's and it's really special for me, because, you know, I've looked for. I'm always on the lookout for any images of this airplane and this crew, and rarely have seen I think only 2 other photos where you can maybe read the name Samoan Clipper on the plane, and in none of those is Captain Music also pictured with his last command. So to have a shot of him actually, you know, on board with the name legible in the same photo is amazing. And Mike Field, the man who wrote into us, and is something of a historian himself, and writes really engagingly and well about you know, all these experiences and the research that he did. He is going to later today. He was going to go visit and see if he could get us some higher quality, you know, pictures of the pictures. Apparently they're quite small, which was pretty common back then. But he'll do his best to get us some really great images, and hopefully we can share those and share the story with everyone viewing. But it's
so cool.
Yeah, it's cool that it came to light, you know, and it came to light because of, you know, hearing this, you know, hearing what we were doing out here. So.
Right, and these photos too that he had, or that the woman had, we'd never seen them before, right?
No.
Right.
I mean, I think they've just been in her private collection. You know, she just had snapped them, you know, as a young woman, and held on to them, you know, all this time. And there was another thing, that they were unsure about when were these pictures taken, because Samoan Clipper had visited New Zealand twice, and, you know, the thought was, you know, she was thinking that maybe it was on their first visit in March of 1937, and then you know, Mike had done the research, and he had discovered that, well, the the weather, all the accounts of the weather in Auckland on that day and March 30th of 1937, it was clear and sunny and beautiful, and so it didn't really make sense that the plane would have landed, on account of bad weather. But in December, it reported that it was quite stormy, and that when the plane did arrive, they had to tow it into a more sheltered area. And so that seemed to line up better, and certainly, that was the first trip that brought the mail to New Zealand. So it is a first. So that may be, what she was associating with that. And but I was able to point out to him that the answer was really in the photograph the whole time, because the airplane, when it was built at the Sikorsky factory and delivered in November of 1936, it was first given the name Pan American Clipper II, and then it was under that name that it made the first survey flight down to New Zealand. So in March of 1937, it would have had a different name. It then went on to be assigned to Manila and ran shuttle runs to the Chinese mainland, from Manila to Macau, and then on to Hong Kong, and so they named it appropriately for that run Hong Kong Clipper. And then when they were going to inaugurate the mail runs to New Zealand and collect that and satisfy that contract, win the contract for the mail runs from the government, they had to start flying by the end of 1937. So in December, they brought the plane back and reconfigured it for the long range flight, and gave it a new name once again that was more appropriate to the region it was operating in, and so it became Samoan Clipper. So it was really only called Samoan Clipper for the last month or so of its existence. So we now know like that photograph has to date from December of 1937.
Which would have been, just shy of a month before the disappearance.
Yeah, actually late December, so maybe about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Before they were lost.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the Samoan Clipper was, in this leg of it, or in this route that it was conducting, it was a mail carrier. And we do know that the Samoan Clipper had about 751 pounds of cargo on it when it disappeared. There is, we've spoken a little bit about, there is a chance that there may be some letters still intact, or maybe other cargo, but if there is, sort of what's the protocol when maybe if we recover that, is there an obligation to deliver them to the original recipients? Does it typically go to